All right, today is July the 8th, 2025. This is your Ips Morning Deprogram. I've been perusing my tweets, mostly looking at people's reactions regarding the whole Epstein thing. And the copium is at an all-time high. The hopium, the QAnon crowd says that today is the 6th anniversary, or what they call the 6th Delta, of when Q posted something on 4chan where he said, the storm has arrived. So now they're saying, oh, now the storm's going to start. So the reason why, and this is their retconning, they have to rewrite their history so they don't sound foolish, because look, they don't want to know that every time they said the word or the name Jeffrey Epstein, they wasted their breath. That every moment they gave to speculating about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats being taken to Guantanamo, that was all a waste. They wasted their time in hope. And I've always been critical of accounts that waste their time on doom and gloom or doomsday scenarios. I call them doom boofers for a reason. Well, the hopium crowd is just as bad. So doom and hope, and then you have this doom hope, where they're actually hoping for doomsday, so they can tell their relatives, see, I was right. And that's really what it comes down to. They don't want to admit that they're wrong. And so this brings up the question of accountability. For example, last year, after Trump's statements about Haitian migrants in Springfield supposedly eating cats, a bunch of right-wingers started shitposting on X, more of the same, but they were posting pictures of what appeared to be, like a cat on a barbecue grill and other things. Well, that cat was a chicken. It had talons, and nobody corrected it. Somebody was cooking a sheep, and they said, oh, it's a Haitian cooking a German Shepherd. But these accounts are huge, as in they get hundreds of thousands of impressions per hour, and they're spreading blatant agitprop. Then it's determined to be fake, and they never go back and they say, excuse me for my lapse of judgment. I'm sorry that I misled you and made you look crazy in front of your relatives. There's no accountability. And these people have been dropping this Epstein stuff shamelessly, especially in the last few months. After the JFK files didn't get released, like they said they would, they said the Epstein files are coming. So they got super hopeful. And these celebrity alt-right, woke-right influencers came out with these binders that said, FBI, Epstein Island, client list. And everybody's like, the storm has come, it's happening now. Those binders were empty. And those fools look ridiculous right now that the FBI has come out and Trump has agreed that there was no client list. And so there was no client list, as we all understood, because we knew this whole thing was essentially it's a story. It's a conspiracy theory story that will never be solved. But they're getting it wrong. So they're correct, there was no client list. But that doesn't mean that the real client list got buried, which is what their takeaway is. Alex Jones was crying yesterday. He was literally, he was crisis acting. But, he had his ugly cry face on. And he's crying because Trump betrayed him. He's like, Trump has done so much good, but now, I don't know. And, they're acting like the real culprits have just been set free. And they're saying, oh, it's because of the big, beautiful bill. That in order to get his big, beautiful bill passed, he was going to have to compromise and cover up the names. So what they have done here, though, is they have created a cover-up story that will last for a generation. So for the next 10, 20, 30 years, people will be able to say, oh, it's because these politicians are all compromised by Mossad because of the operation by Epstein, which gives ultimate power to Israel over all American politics. That's what it comes down to. It's the woke right basic conspiracy about J-power. And this reinforces it. And that was the story all along. And it doesn't require real victims. Just like blood libel, adrenochrome, rituals, that stuff never has to be real. It doesn't have to show itself, but people believe it anyway. So that's just the next chapter here, is watching all these people cling to this myth of the deep state and the compromised government serving a foreign power because they've all been caught on camera doing terrible things. And the thing is, you had like Pam Bondi and others coming out, like Dan Bongino, Kash Patel. Again, I spell Cash with a Q because he used to wear Q socks, Punisher socks, he said. And the Punisher was a symbol of, we're finally going to get the Clintons and we're going to take them to Guantanamo and punish them. But they were all saying that there are disturbing videos, thousands of videos of politicians doing these unspeakable things. And now we find out there's nothing. But then what was their source for saying that? Well, their source was they were tapping into the boundless credulity of the propaganda dupes that make up the MAGA base. They just knew they had it. Like when Tucker Carlson comes out and he's like, yeah, a demon crawled into my bed last night and it scratched me up. And there's scars running down my back and on the backs of my thighs. It's like, show us your scars, Tucker. What are you hiding? Maybe he has a bad tattoo. He's got a tramp stamp or something. You just pixel it out. Show us your scars. But he's not going to show us the scars for some reason. Well, it's because he knows he doesn't have to. Just like they don't have to show you the victims of Epstein. Rather, the client list. Because these things are fake. Now, there are these professional victims. I saw a lot of these really sick channels. These people who push satanic ritual abuse. And they're like, yes, I was abused by Bernie Sanders on a train at 3 a.m. and George Bush was there filming it. Like, they come up with these really wacko stories about politicians, satanic ritual abuse stories. And I call these people out. And I say, you know, you guys are just generating really disgusting content. Like, you're basically pornographers. And they block me. But anyway, they frequently put on their panels professional online victims who claim that they were at Epstein Island. Like, yeah, I was taken to Epstein Island on the Lolita Express and Stephen Hawking was there and did bad things in the back of the plane. I'm like, I don't know, you guys. I think you're all making this stuff up. You're a bunch of grifters. Epstein was a huge grift. So I made a Psyop trading card with Epstein's face on a cow, and it's being milked by the media. And I'm calling it a Psyop milk cow, because that's exactly what it is. And you could say the same about 9/11 and the 9/11 industry that followed it, as far as like the grift. Anti-vax is a similar grift. It's another milk cow. What's up, Psy Girl? Says, Mossad espionage and blackmail is fake, ignore it. Yeah, exactly, it is fake. If you think it's real, then you're a woke right believer in critical J theory. And you have as much credibility as your average woke leftist who thinks that there's a Klansman under every bed. So yeah, absolutely ignore the fake Mossad espionage bullshit conspiracy claptrap story. If you want to preserve your sanity. But if you want to run around with a fake narrative that makes you feel like you're fighting the system, you know, you're just basically blowing off steam in a state-approved, Pentagon-conceived steam valve. That's how they manage your discontent. They make you think that you found the bad guy, it's this country, it's this group, and it's this guy did this, and it's these politicians. And now here you are 10 years later, chanting the same mantras, and nothing has changed. And then you have the QAnon people sitting around, passing the Q pipe around, and they're like, the storm's gonna start today. It's like, don't you realize that the storm was January 6th? And it always was gonna be. That was a setup from the beginning. What's up, Penguinati? Says the CEO Luigi killed is the comedian Tim Dillon. I'll have to look. The CEO had a bit of a history. You could find video of him in a few places. Ollie Goering says, if it's a poll, I think Trump presidency is a nothing burger. It's a pattern of the design of Great Awakening or PSYOPs. Well, you had Great Awakening and Great Reset, left and right. And here's another point too, because I've been looking a lot into this idea of wokeism, and what we're talking about is, as James Lindsay, who I'm not really a follower of him or his politics, but he writes extensively about this socio-Gnosticism. So there's like a template in play here, where you got the sleepers and the people who wake up. And the people who wake up are given this cause to evangelize about, to save the world. And I remember reading this really good book by, it was, I think it was called A Conflict of Visions. Yeah, there's a book called A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell, who's this economist. And he was describing what he called the unconstrained versus the constrained versions. And the unconstrained version, or vision, the unconstrained vision is the woke left, we can perfect society through perfecting its institutions, total faith in government. And the constrained vision is typified by limited government conservatism that sees man as inherently corrupt, unfixable, and therefore our system has to account for that. And we can't plan on any sort of perfectibility. So you have these two competing versions, and the left version is basically centered around saving the world, waking people up. So to be awake on the left side is to be aware of the white power structure, systemic racism, the West and its oppression of the world's poor, and the system of capitalism just being an expression of this corrupt system that wouldn't exist without white supremacy. So that's to be awake on the left. So if you're on the left, the reason why lefties are mad is because they see a sexist, racist, white power structure, and they have to wake people up to fight against it. Now, if that sounds ridiculous to you, or if that sounds extreme, it's because it is. It's designed to be. But the same thing exists with the red pill community, which is a subset of the J pill. So in other words, if you think that Epstein was working for Mossad because Israel controls America, guess what? You've adopted the J power structure theory as opposed to the white power structure theory. So critical race theory, critical Jew theory, these are on both sides of the political spectrum. And if you buy either of them, you're in the same camp. Just like the people who think that chemtrails caused the floods in Texas, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're just as ridiculous as Greta and Al Gore and all the climate alarmists who think that your consumption of fossil fuels is somehow responsible for the latest inclement weather on some, in some place where it's already part of the climate. I mean, they're just pointing out regular things that happen and they're exaggerating it, but both sides do it. So again, I'm saying, yeah, ignore it. I would say ignore it unless you want to live in a delusion and a fantasy. See, like your argument here, Asai Girl says, Alex Acosta says, ignore the story because the intelligence told me not to touch him, so ignore the story. See, they want you to think there's a cover-up. They want you to think there's a cover-up. They can't produce real victims because there aren't any. If there were, I don't even know if there were, this would have been over 10 years ago. There aren't any. But your belief in the supposed victims is all it takes to motivate you. It's the same thing with Save the Children. Remember the Save the Children chants in 2017, 2018, up to 2020? There's children in the tunnels. I saw this crap on Twitter. Like, the reason why we had the floods in Texas is that they had to use geoengineering to cause the floods because the deep state is in there and it's a war underground. So the thing is, you're basically crisis acting. If there's no real victims, like save the children from the AR-15s, well, what if all the school shootings are fake? So if I started advocating for fake dead kids, you would probably say, hey, you're a little stressed out about a bunch of fake kids who never existed. And I think it's the same here. So if you think that Epstein was anything but a nothing burger and a setup to control your mind, you're wrong. You're missing the forest. It's the forest of fakery. It's not like, 90% of the stuff's fake, but the Epstein thing is real. No, none of it's real in the sense that you think it is if you're falling into the bifurcated framework of the world stage and if you're firmly ensconced within the political horseshoe. You're a mind war victim. If you still believe in anti-geoengineering as a cause, you're a mind war victim. You see, the red pill was a false awakening. All the red pill conspiracy theories don't make you more awake or aware than anybody else. It's a deeper level of programming and delusion. So I'm glad I'm not stressed about it. No, I don't think it was a limited hangout. I don't think it was a sting. At this point, look, when it comes to any psyop with a body count, whether it's a number of victims who are killed or a number of victims who are abused or whatever, you have to assume the body count 0 if there's no evidence. Or specifically, if there's evidence suggesting the whole thing is fake or a hoax. So any of that would tell you that now your starting point is 0 because you don't have the burden of proof. They didn't present it. And so I remember back when Jeffrey Epstein was supposedly killed, we were looking at the photography, and nobody answered the question, who was photographing him in the ambulance, outside of the ambulance, on the gurney going into the emergency room? Because if you were working for an ambulance company and you're photographing a patient being taken into the emergency room, you're getting fired. So those were purposeful leaks. So this whole thing's a story, and I'm not falling for it. It's too infused, it's too muddied with misinformation, hopium, copium, exaggeration, and lies. So why would you believe any part of it? Why would you believe even a little bit of it?